So women being submissive, modest, their value comes from marriage, and then women expected to have children, and their value is based on their motherhood. You want to start us
Right.
off?
Sure. I mean,
Plenty to cover.
the thing is, this one, we've been talking in this series about how these items show up in the world, not just in situations that we would deem high control. And this one is a huge one of that because that is just the patriarchy, right? Like everything you just read in there is rooted in the idea that men are the leaders and women are, made of a rib, and therefore like the support
Bullshit.
and not someone who can be thought of as an autonomous individual. So we may have covered some of this when we were talking about loss of autonomy, but this is really specifically loss of autonomy when it comes to one's own body and one's own sexuality.
Right.
And the
We,
gender, right? So maybe this is a good moment for definitions of sex versus gender, right? Because
Mhm.
when we talk about sex, we're talking about like physical characteristics, right? When we talk about sex. So that is to be a female or a male, right? That goes along with the sex. But then when you talk about gender, man and woman, that is more about the role that they or the way they see themselves. But then when we're talking about gender, we're talking more about the way that someone chooses to show up in the world, right? Like what traditional roles um, do they either like energetically kind of connect with or find themselves filling, right? So gender is this thing that we say is a social construct, meaning that yes, we recognize that in the vast majority of people there's a, not all of them obviously though, there's a binary in the sex organs. And so that was where we came up with male and female, although obviously the lines are not that clear. But when it comes to gender, that's really more addressing the parts that we've added on to the fact that we come out of the womb with different genitalia, right? So the fact of, oh, someone came out with a vulva, therefore, for so long, we've done things like you get dolls and you're going to grow
Mhm.
up and learn how to cook and sew, right? So it's that
Yep.
tradition carrying forward, but thinking somehow that that's an ideal or a requirement for admission into a church or, making it to heaven or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just like here's ways I can be in the world and here's a great way I found for myself to be in the world. It's like recognizing that that church then is trying to come in and say, no, you can't be gay. You can't um, you know, find other whatever attractive. It's like it's a little bit that villainization of normal human behavior again, right?
Mhm.
It's like saying you're not okay the way you are,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's we've seen that idea over and over in this wheel of you're not okay as you are, who you are. You need us to make you okay, to make you safe, to make you all the things.
I think even until recently, I didn't realize there was a big difference between sex and gender. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that's fair. Like it's kind of a new cultural conversation, and I'm sure that there are people who would disagree with the way I just defined it. So that's okay, to think that there's one right definition is never going to be the case.
Right.
Right? We're
Yes.
we're all using words not based on their definition. We're using them, we'll talk about this a lot too. We're using them based on the feelings they cause for us. But at some point, then when those words get hijacked by like the far right or something, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, nope, now we need to get down to definitions and understand what we're actually talking about. So that's maybe a little bit of a sidebar, but in general, when we're talking about this sex and gender control, it really is um, kind of getting to the heart of who you are to control you. Like I am a woman, right? Well, okay, let's make sure you identify yourself as a woman, and then we're going to have all of these things in place in front of you so that you understand okay, you're a woman. Now you need to do this, this, and this to be acceptable. And if you don't, you're not acceptable and you're not fulfilling what you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like one more layer, one more label to add in order to use it as a whip.